Hey there, it's Brian Ivy, and guess what? We have a lot of snow on the ground across a pretty large area of the country. Some spots are more than a couple inches. They are into that foot plus category, and because of this huge snowpack and a lot of cold air coming on down, it's going to be pretty uneasy to get very cold temperatures far south. And we're going to see this big trough that's going to develop with that warmer air and that ridging up over the top. That's going to force the trough down. That's an okay signal for potential storminess this weekend. But we'll look at some of the cold first as we go into Thursday morning. Actual air temperatures around 0 to below 0 in a lot of spots across the upper Midwest into the Northeast. Look at how far south we get with some of this cold. Temperatures only topping out in the 30s and 40s. That's it. This is Sunday morning. These are air temperatures into Miami, 33 degrees. Wow, yeah, cold. Northern Florida, well below freezing. Up north, sure, you're a lot closer to 0 or so. So we'll talk about the wind chills in a little bit, but actual air temperatures definitely stay very cold into early next week before we start to moderate across the middle portion of the country and start to at least get closer to average further off towards the north and east. Weekend storm talk. Okay, it's all about how close this low pressure develops off the coast to the coast. Some of these different plots are putting the low further on the west side. Most of them are putting them within a reasonable distance to certainly have some pretty good impacts across the Carolinas into maybe Virginia and then kind of pull it a little bit east. But it's close enough where it should scrape the coast. It could even be a major system well into the East Coast. We'll keep a close eye on that. Chances of seeing 1 inch are pretty much a lock across portions of North Carolina into eastern Tennessee, up into portions of the coastal plain, and then they definitely drop on down until you pretty much get right along the shoreline. All right, the next couple of days here, we'll watch for this northern stream to come on down here with moisture being picked up from the Gulf Coast. This is going to connect and it's going to shove it eastward. High pressure moves out of the way, and this is the developing system right here. There's not a lot going on across the middle portion of the country. There is a system into the Pacific Northwest bringing mainly rain. This system will start to come up the coast, and at this point, this seems to be a pretty reasonable solution for Friday night into Saturday, somewhere from Charlotte to Richmond to D.C., depending on exactly how things line up is where things change. Does this exit further off towards the north and east? Does it take more of a northerly pattern right along the coast? This computer model forecast really expands a good precip shield here as we go on in through the day on Saturday, and then brings it up into areas of Washington, D.C., Atlantic City, New York City. Notice, not getting too far inland though, into the Boston area. Yes, definitely Cape Cod, I would certainly assume. But notice how close to the coast this is. This is just one model. This is a very reasonable type solution at this point. So going forward a little bit more, where we have this area here, it would be heavy snow. Big time heavy snow potential. But again, it's boom or bust. If this stays just 30, 50, 70 miles further off towards the east, this is a very different solution impact-wise because you're not seeing the snow into the big cities. This has just an enormous impact potential difference on exactly what happens. But this would be during the day on Sunday when this occurs. And as we go into Sunday night and early Monday, this will pull on out, except for, again, Boston and east. And then it's just a coastal storm, maybe a couple little clippers into early next week, but overall we are in a generally fairly quiet weather pattern. With that, could have a little lake effect. Lake Erie's frozen. You still get a little bit of what's called moisture flux. That's sublimation, where it changes from a solid state, the ice, into still moisture. You still get a little bit of help from the other lakes as well. Another system out here, cross moving through Montana into Colorado. Overall, though, we'll see probably a system develop here with a influx of warmer air by the middle portions of next week. So cold air is definitely going to be around further off towards the west. 40% chance of this type track verifying. This would be that western track where even some light snow gets into the eastern half or so of Pennsylvania. And the better chance is that it just hugs the shoreline, and areas that stick out into the ocean get hit with a pretty good snowstorm, and it's pretty minor into DC, Philly, New York, and even Boston. So very close call. But we'll show you some different solutions. This is if it does indeed nick more in the way of coastal areas. So you're certainly going to get a decent amount of snowfall, probably into areas like Raleigh and Roanoke, Richmond, most likely. Probably east of DC gets at least a little bit. And then again, it really depends on exactly how far west this tracks. Right now, this model puts the heavy snow out over the ocean, but it does nick the coastal areas with, let's say, 4 to 8 inches, and then you go just a little bit inland, you're talking about maybe 1 to 3 as the best call. It's fairly quiet next week, below average precipitation to maybe around average. We should have a clipper train though here. That might be a little bit more active, still very dry across the west, and then a couple systems keeping Texas a little bit more wet. Back into temperature talk. Let's talk those wind chills. Definitely cold. Thursday morning here, -13, -15, -12. Friday morning is going to be even colder. You're going to push in those -30s or so further off towards the north. It's still very chilly, but not crazy Arctic cold further south. Different story northeast, 15, 20 below zero. Here comes better wind chills as we go through the weekend further off towards the south. How about Sunday morning feeling like -2 around Atlanta? Crazy cold. How about northern Florida feeling 12 degrees? Crazy cold. 4 degrees in North Carolina. Yeah, and feeling certainly a few degrees below zero further off towards the north. And things start to moderate a little bit as we go through the day on Monday, so that'll be at least good. But very cold weather for the most part with sustainability further off towards the east. We do get a break next week, certainly across the middle portion of the country, possibly in towards the western lakes, but it's going to remain chilly for the East Coast.